got a phone call at 7.
Sorry,
All right.
guys.
All right, Donna Susek,
Here.
Walter Crucell,
Here.
Gina Sakala,
Here.
Bob Crisati,
Here.
Marie Peisner,
Here.
Scott Ryder.
Here.
Did you say Tim was not joining us tonight?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Doug McSellen. Okay. Tina LeBlanc. Jonathan LeBlanc.
Here.
Charlotte Riley. Bethany Olette.
Here.
Melissa Everett.
She's
Jaime-
here.
Oh, Melissa's here.
Here, unmuted, sorry.
Okay. Jaime Cisneros. Jeff Leonowitz.
Here.
Chris Cycli. No Chris yet.
He won't, he's not joining tonight. He had a conflict.
Oh, okay, thank you, Sam. I was just gonna ask if anyone else was on. So I have Donald, Sam, and is there anybody else on?
Tom
Hibbard.
Tom. I see Tom Hibbard. Yep, I got you, Tom.
John Wilcox.
And John. Okay.
May I just throw in quickly, Jaime was in touch that he thinks he's going to need to resign after having been in touch that he wanted to jump in with both feet because there have been changes in his job. I told him he needed to write a formal communication to Donna and Walter, but you know,
Okay.
let us know.
Thank you, Melissa. Okay, can I get a motion to approve the minutes from March 11th?
So moved.
Second.
Walter and then Gina. All in favor, raise their hands. Any opposed? Any abstentions?
Yes, Scott will abstain just because I missed the meeting. I did review the minutes and I watched the video, but I wasn't there.
Okay, Scott and Marie will abstain and everybody else is in favor of the minutes. Okay, tonight we have a special guest, John Wilcox. He's going to explain the benefits of, I think I have this right, John, what you want to explain to us, but bonding versus CIP and sinking funds and what we do with the grant money when we get it back. John, you're muted.
Yep, I just had to find the right button. Well, I can answer some questions on the bonding. And stuff. Mostly I was gonna talk about how these projects are funded.
Yeah, that's okay.
For right
Yeah.
now. And you know, probably a little less in the bonding, but you know, we can go into that a little bit after I'm done. I mean, right now I was going to go right to the very basics of you know how what we have to do just to allow us to spend money on things in the
Okay, well,
town.
we're going to turn the meeting over to you and
All righty.
you have the floor and you can explain everything to us.
All right, I'm going to try and share a presentation. I'm not sure if this will work, but if it doesn't, I have a backup plan. So,
Okay.
Are they on?
John, do you want to?
all right, I'm going to have to go to the, I'm going to need to share my screen here just a second. And we're going to go to my backup plan.
No. John, if you want to send me the file, I can maybe try to get it on my side if you want.
Give me just a second here. can I share my screen through here? I think I can.
It's gonna be a green rectangular box with a north arrow.
Yep.
Then you gotta click your screen, which one you wanna share. One or two.
All right. So before we can spend any money on any project, we need to appropriate, you'll hear me talk about appropriating funds for the project itself. I have certain requirements about how that can be done and what we have to do on it. So to start, just the basic definition, what is an appropriation? It's a sum of money or a total of assets that are devoted to a specific purpose, okay? There's a bunch of different examples. Most of them are individual expenditures, police salaries, finance salaries, DPW salaries, their benefits. All of them are individual examples. Also, capital projects are usually set aside appropriation of money. We set aside money to be used to be spent on specific projects, okay? We're subject to certain limitations by the town charter, which says that we can only appropriate 0.0002 of the grand list in any one fiscal year for a project. 0.0002 of the grand list equates to approximately $673,000 for fiscal year 21. And that amount will go up to $689,000 for fiscal year 22. Okay. The budget that council approves every year is a whole series of appropriations. That's just an example of appropriations for a bunch of different things. This is how we tell people what we're going to spend the money on that we raise in taxes and from other sources. The charter requires that we have appropriations before we can actually spend money on anything. So here's a couple of provisions from the charter that are requirements that we have to operate under. We can't make any purchase, any department, board, or commission. Nobody can make any purchase except through the purchasing agent, which is me, and I'm charged with making sure the second part of this is that I record all authorized against the appropriation from which it must be paid. All right, so that tells me that I have to have an appropriation before I can authorize any expenditure. So I'm kind of the gatekeeper on all this stuff. And Kathy Churpak helps me out with that. As part B in here is she reviews all the individual vouchers. So when we have a project such as the Hazardville Memorial roof, and she makes sure that the expenditures are supposed to be paid on the roof, on that project, make sure that all of the calculations are accurate, that they meet the requirements of any state contract, that all these individual things or meet what we set out in our RFP before we can actually appropriate the money or spend the money that has been appropriated on. Now, when you have, money that once we have an appropriation, we're allowed to spend and pay vendors that meet the requirements of that appropriation. So we have to pay police salaries, or we have to pay the people who are designing the Hazardville Memorial School roof. So you need money to actually pay for that, okay? So there's two components to a budget or to the individual transfers that the council sees when we appropriate money. And there basically there's the where the money, what's the money going to be spent on and where we're getting it from. Okay. So in the budget, most of the expenditures come from our current year taxes and other revenues, building permits, conveyance taxes, there's a whole series of different revenue sources that the town has. Some of it's state funding. We get probably, I think somewhere around $30 million from the state. Our total budget is about $146 million. Sometimes we get the sources of funding are from grants. So when we do these how do I say, these roof projects, we have a combined, there is a town piece and there is a state requirement. The Hazardville Memorial roof expenditures that we appropriated for this particular year, we split between the town is about 35% and the state is about 65%. Okay, that gives me a little bit of a cushion for disallowed expenditures. Okay, so this is how we budgeted for that. So we expect that $437,000 is going to come in from the state to pay for this portion of the roof. Okay. Remember, this was appropriated in fiscal year 21. Okay. In fiscal year 22, we can add to this, and we will add to this about $689,000. Okay. It will also be split between the general fund balance, or rather, that one will probably come out of some of the taxes and state grants. Okay. So we don't get the state grant money until later on. Okay. So we have to spend the money up front. Where do we get that money to pay for these projects? Typically because we have a healthy fund balance that we through kind of careful budget management and stuff, we have a healthy fund balance that provides us with a source of additional cash so we don't have to borrow additional funds to pay for these projects. Okay. Just to give us an example, I'm going to find my share a different screen here with you guys. This was the council appropriation where we funded the first half of the Hazardville roof project. Okay. This shows, these are just the individual accounts that we used, and we said we were going to spend $466,000 on construction services.
John, I can't see that.
$48,000 on the design, and $59,000 on other professional.
I'm not seeing it. Am I the only one that's not seeing it?
So it needs to
Hold
share
on.
on the screen.
Maybe we have to share a different screen. Sorry about that. Just got to figure out which one it is. How's that look?
Yep.
Okay, so this goes, these roof projects, okay, just to get into the decision that Donna was speaking to before about bonding and how do we want to fund these individual projects, okay? Our capital expenditure requirements are that what I said before, 673,000 is all I can appropriate in 1 year. If I want to appropriate more money than that in one fiscal year, we have to go to referendum and get approved for it. Okay. I don't have to, I don't want to say, the same applies to bonding. Okay, the same requirements. I can issue debt up to $673,000 just with between Chris and myself, Chris Probson and myself. We can't, if we're going to issue any debt for more than that, bonds or any loans, short-term loans or anything, we have to get referendum approval, the approval of the town's taxpayers before we actually do it. So it's a time-consuming, it's complex process to actually get that, to go through that. So we've kind of just developed a plan where for these individual roofs, where we fund a portion each year and do them in stages rather than go to council, rather than go to the public for referendum for them. Okay, so I didn't formulate my thought process on the bonding process, but that's I mean, this is a reason we're kind of doing it this way, is rather than going through the time and the expense of going to the referendum process, we just decided to put aside amounts each year to pay for these individual projects. The council is approving those. So what questions do you have for me on those?
Do I have any questions from the floor? I just have a question, John. So we do these in multi-year things.
Yes.
So we approve the maximum that we can do without going to referendum, because I guess it's, as you said, it's time consuming to go to referendum. Referendums don't necessarily pass and some work needs to be done. So we need to have a way to do this through our CIP.
Correct.
So what happens in a multiple year project?
So when we put these into this, so right now, okay, this particular roof, and we did the same thing for the Eli Whitney School. So this is just identical, just two different projects done the same way. We take this money and we appropriate it in fiscal year 21, okay? Because this is going into our capital projects fund. Capital projects funds are what they call a multi-year fund. And what that means is the appropriation doesn't go away the next fiscal year. The general fund is an annual fund. So any money that we appropriate for fiscal year 21 goes away to fiscal year 22, and we establish our budget for fiscal year 22 each year, or in this fiscal year. Next year, we'll do budget for fiscal year 23. But if we put money aside for a capital project, that money stays there until we finish the project or we abandon it. So right now, we're going to put $673,000 aside for this fiscal year, or which we already did this in January. In the budget for fiscal year 22, we will put another $689,000. So there is a total now of the sum of those two, a little over $1.3 million to complete that can be spent on a phase of this roof. And since we won't be starting until July, we're actually making progress on it now, but the actual construction won't start until July. There will be a little over $1.3 million available to be spent on this roof project. Okay. And so that allows, this section to be, whatever section you guys determine needs to be done can be spent. We will then appropriate, I think if there might be, Jeff, you'd have to help me out on what the total of these two roofs are, whether or not we might need a third appropriation in fiscal year 23 to finish this this particular roof.
Yeah, I mean, once we receive the bids, I think we'll know pretty strong with the adults and how the materials are moving. I think the only thing I'm worried about right now is the variability in the building material market and steel pricing being one of them. So keep your fingers crossed, everyone, that it levels out and stays favorable as it has in years past.
So the in fiscal year 23, okay, we can appropriate another amount, and I don't know what that amount is, and we're going through a revaluation. Hopefully our grand list will go up and it'll be a little bit more than $689,000 next in fiscal year 23 that we can apply towards a phase 2 or a phase 3 of these 2 roof projects. Okay, and the impact to the town will not be that whole 600 and whatever $1,000 because the town's share is only the 35% of it, or 30%. We'll know better by the end of it.
So John, what I'm hearing is that when we put this roof out to bid and they start, say, June 20th, when school ends, that's when we'll spend the $673,000 for the first phase. But if budget season goes the way it does go, we could, in this budget coming up, appropriate another $690,000. So it would be conceivable to, if you knew ahead of time you were going to get that funding, to actually do that whole roof at the Eli Whitney.
Well, by the time that we actually do this, I mean, I cannot enter the PO
Right.
because I don't have the funding available for it as of June 20th, or when they get done with school. But I could then increase the PO as of July 1st. By that time, we would know whether or not the budget passed. And if the budget was, I mean, if the council didn't approve the budget, whatever the town manager proposes becomes the budget. So it's going to be in there.
Right, but we would need to know that when we did our grant application. And this is always how we get into this quagmire of having to do it in phases.
Yeah.
And when this
Well-
money comes back to us from the state, where do you put that money? I'm always a big person for putting money in buckets.
Right. Well, that's one of the reasons for this for this whole discussion
I knew
here
that.
is we are saying, okay, that we're going to spend this money and the state's going to give it to us. Okay.
Mhm.
But the state doesn't give it to us until after the project's been, I mean, these are smaller projects. They don't give it to us until after the project has been completed. All right. So our vendors aren't going to wait until after the project's completed to get paid. They want their money while they're doing it. And I don't blame them for that. So what happens is, because we have, our fund balance is sufficient that we have extra cash that we're not using to pay our operating expenses, we can provide some money up front to the vendors. So we pay the vendors up front. When the state pays us, approves our funding, we're repaying ourselves essentially with that money. Okay. So
Yep.
you see on here, there are the $235,000, that money we will put in, we have already put into the grant project fund. Okay. When the $437,000 comes in from the state, we will put that in here and we will pay back the general fund where we borrowed the cash from to pay it. That's why I say that money's already spoken for. So when that money comes in, it's not, we can't really appropriate that money to be spent on another project because we essentially borrowed it from ourselves.
Right. We had envisioned that that money would go into something called a sinking fund, but we've never fully utilized those accounts because we never fully funded them.
Right. I mean, and there probably is a way that I could do that. I just haven't, because in order to do that, though, I would have to take the entire $673,000 out of the general fund.
Correct.
Okay. So yes, I could, when I think about these things, I'm trying to make sure that the project and the general fund stays, sufficient. And so that's why I've done it. Council could certainly approve the other way if they wanted to.
Right. That seems like it hasn't been rigorously pursued by the council, from my understanding. And I guess for me, even when we do go to referendum, it does not necessarily mean that we have to bond to do these projects. We can spend this money through budget. You can spend over the referendum limit. Is that true, my understanding?
That is 100% true. That's correct. So the charter tells me that on this side, the two accounts, they can't be more than $673,000 for this fiscal year, and that referendum allows me to spend more. And as a matter of fact, let me just see if I can find real quick here. I think that other one I put on. So can everybody see those?
Yes.
Okay, so these are the actual sections of the charter which cover this. Okay, so the council can appropriate funds for capital improvements. Any appropriation that's greater than 0.0002 of the current grand list shall not be effective until submitted and approved by referendum. All right, but the same kind of language is right down here in the borrowing fund. So in the borrowing section, these are just two sections from the charter. Okay, so we have the power to issue indebtedness, but only up to 0.002 of the current grand list. So Donna, when you see me doing the leases,
yep,
I'm careful to keep those things under the referendum limit, all under the 673,000 or 689,000 next year as well.
correct.
Okay, so if we put in the sum of all of the police cars that we're going to buy under that lease is going to be less than $689,000 for 2022.
It's going to get tough on some of those sides of those trucks.
Yeah, yes, it is.
You have to go to referendum for a dump truck.
Well, hopefully the grand list will go up enough to keep up with that.
I certainly hope so.
If we get Mayfield Apartments to add a few more buildings in there. So typically when we do a referendum, okay, the referendum language, like for JFK, we combine these two. We do the referendum language, if you read it, combines the requirements of both of these. It allows us to spend more than the $670,000, and it also allows us to borrow money to pay for that. So, there's two questions or two permissions that are authorized in each referendum. but we don't have to do the borrowing piece of it.
Correct. We have any more questions for John?
I do.
Okay, go ahead, Donald.
Oh, I know. John and Jeffrey and I have these conversations, and some of the stuff is just lost on me. But John, so the alternative method that Donna was talking about, where we would take 670, then if we wanted to go into the sinking fund, right, that you would have to take the entire 670 out of the general fund, and then that would go towards, after whatever reimbursement, we could put that in a sinking fund. So what you're saying is right now, 253,000 is only going against the mill rate, correct? If we do it the way you're doing it now, correct?
Yeah, with this year, okay, because we did it after the budget was passed, okay, 673,000, the 235 came out of, let me go back to the transfer here. Give me 1 second. The 235,000 came out of fund balance, so it wasn't a part of that mill rate. But if we put it in next year's budget, 235,000 will be charged against the mill rate. Yes.
Right, but if you do it the other way, where it goes to the sinking fund, 673,000 is going to be charged to the mill rate, correct?
That's correct. Yes.
So that's most likely the reason why this hasn't been pursued, Donna. I mean, I can't see. I mean, you're tripling that up for the mill rate, and that's just gonna. If you have 3 or 4 of these projects, I mean that's almost a couple. If 3 of these at 670 is almost a mill, right, John? Or
Right.
$290,000 or $2,900,000 approximately is the value of 1 mil in taxes. So yeah, it's
like
close
4
to that.
projects of this, and you went up a mill already. So maybe that's why, Donna. I mean, I don't.
Well, I think the thing is that this was originally in the budget. The funding up for 673 for the 2021. Eli Whitney was in there and Hazardville Memorial was in there. And when we decided that we would not raise the mill rate, we took those out of the budget. So we did a lot of, and in my eyes, I'm going to share my eyes with you, we did a lot of budget balancing at the expense of CIP in my eyes. So, and then we're not going to referendum for the roofs. I really felt it was really important, and I kept lobbying and lobbying and lobbying. And finally, we saw that, things were not quite as bleak as we had originally anticipated. And probably to just shut me up, they took the money out of the fund balance to appropriate money for these 2 roofs, because there is the understanding that these roofs are old and they do need to be done. And I think that's why we're doing it that way. If through the years we had always put, say, $100,000 in, in the sinking fund for each roof, it wouldn't be such a big deal. But we were so, behind the 8 ball with every school, coming up on 35 and 40-year-old roofs, that we were in a really bad situation. So I think I see why we've gone away from sinking funds, because it takes years to fund sinking funds. I mean, if you could have divided, your fund balance into my little buckets that I like, then it would be more understandable. But I understand why it's going back into the general fund and not into the sinking fund. You do get that, but that's a little bit of an explanation of how I see it. Whether it's correct or not, I don't know. So.
Well, the sinking funds, really, we started those when Brian was here.
Correct.
So, and even if we funded them at the max each year, we you can only put $670,000 roughly in there each year. So we'd have like about 4 years worth, or five, maybe five. I don't think it'll be 5 years. I think probably 4 years. So we'd have about a little over $2.5 million in there in each sinking fund if you funded each one to the max.
Right.
So I mean, it still requires to almost 3 or 4 years, depending on the prices on some of these roofs, to do one roof.
Well, right. This is Gina. I actually think sinking funds are a great alternative when you have long-term planning like this, and even concurrent planning when we're trying to do some roofs while we're waiting for the referendum to hopefully pass. If we have a project and we have enough insight where we know in a couple of years something needs to be done, these sinking funds are great alternatives.
Mhm.
Yep. I agree with Gina.
And Gina, we use them in other areas. We've been using them for years. The townwide revaluation is a very expensive process. You don't want to
That's
hit
right.
you don't want to hit fund balance, or I mean, even fund balance, you don't want to hit that for the full valuation is $600,000.
Yeah, it's normally really expensive on my taxes too.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully your taxes should only go up like 2%.
Mhm.
Overall expenses, taxes. I mean, if your mill rate, if your assessed value goes up, your mill rate should come down. It shouldn't offset completely, but it should. It should.
It's dollars
offset
per
some.
household.
So. I know. So Donna, we are actually thinking about sending separate bills out for the fire districts this year.
Good.
We're going to include them in one bill package. So just keep in mind, you may get questions and more calls from the taxpayers on that.
I'm already getting my request of things people want through CIP. And that's the other thing with sinking funds, is that at the end of 3 years, if the money is not expended, it doesn't go into John's little list of things that are, going to lose their funding.
Correct.
That's the other, benefit of a sinking fund. Yeah, I got the letter with the petition for lights now on the pickleball courts. But maybe Melissa will help us out on that, because they're thinking about solar.
Absolutely.
There you go. So,
Pay close attention.
yeah. Any
So-
more questions for John?
Yeah, I just want to just to sum up, John, again, I just wanted to tell the committee that that the refunded money coming back in, we cannot use it for anything else. If you could just confirm that going forward
Yes.
right now. Go ahead. You got it, John.
Yes, that money is already spoken for. Unfortunately, that's that.
But if it came out of the sinking fund, we could put it back in the sinking fund. Right?
I mean, yeah. I mean, if we had enough money in the sinking fund to pay for the whole project, we could.
Yes.
Yeah,
Right.
we could put it back in there, but we don't. So.
Well, we just want to put it back so that we can spend it again on another project. We just
Well, I
want
mean,
that to
we're
be the
spending
holding
it-
house for it.
Well, we're not spending it the first time. So, I mean, that's the
Right.
thing. We're only taking the $200,000 out of fund balance. So it's, you know what I mean? That's, we're counting on that money to finish the project. So,
Right. Yeah, we do get that. But we're really, we know what needs to be done here in this committee. This committee is very aggressive about
right.
what it likes. Any more questions, comments, concerns?
Nope.
Okay,
Very good.
I think we're all set. You got money though in there for the transfer station, right?
Yep.
Okay, good.
So, all righty. All right. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, thanks, John, for coming.
You're welcome.
Thanks, John.
Good
We're
night, John.
promising
Thank you.
to spend money more wisely.
What's that?
We'll spend money more wisely.
We just need to keep pushing it along, on an annual basis. And once we get to that, we should be fairly level funding. That's the whole goal of what we've been trying to do, is to spend about the same amount in capital every year. So,
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
you're welcome.
Okay. On to old business. Got the Henry Barner. We're not going to see this money it's the last 10% of the 70%. Could be 5 years down the road. So, all right, B. So we have, is it Sam?
Yeah, I'm
You have-
here. So,
I'm gonna turn those over to you, B and C, and whatever else you'd like to answer. Thank you.
yeah, so I unfortunately don't have a huge update on Barnard. That's more Chris's realm, but
Okay.
I
that's fine.
I just got a text from Chris earlier today saying that we should have our approval letter for Eli Whitney by Monday,
Okay.
which is
Good
good.
news.
So once we get that, then we'll probably have to have another meeting just to get the drawings and specs approved. But in terms of the front end specs and all that kind of stuff, that's in with the purchasing department for review. So they're looking at that right now. And then once we get the letters, or once we get both products approved, then we'll send it out to bid and hopefully be able to send things out to bid maybe mid-April. That's kind of what we're hoping for. But granted, that could change depending on when we get things back. So, but mid-April is what we're shooting for.
Okay, Tom, does that sound good to you? Tom, you still with us? I see Tom there, but he's muted.
Here, I think he's muted. Oh,
There
there you
he is.
Yep, we'll be ready.
go.
You'll
Okay.
be ready? Okay, so you'll need the approval from us, correct, Tom?
Once we get the number from the state, we put that on the documents and we go through a routing process. There has to be a motion by the Board of Ed and the building committee, and then it has to be reviewed and approved by 4 local officials: building official, fire marshal, health, and the 504 official.
Okay. All right, well, if you need anything from us, if we need to have any kind of a special meeting, we would gladly zoom in and look at the drawings, and if you could get them to us ahead of time. Some of us still can read drawings. And, we have, may have a few questions.
And ditto from the Board of Ed as well. If you need, whatever meetings you need, let us know.
Okay. Yes, of course. We'll coordinate with you guys.
Okay, great. All
So
right,
that's all I have.
all right. So it looks like, in D and E, the Eli Whitney, and we're waiting on everything, and we should be going out to bid hopefully mid-April.
Yep, that's the plan for right now. I know as long as we get that approval letter, we should be good.
Okay, sounds good. Any questions from the committee? Okay, energy performance contract. Anything new, Jeff?
No, well, I guess I should take that back. Yes, so they're doing the completion of their 3rd year. So I forgot the name of the gentleman, but we paid for the 3rd year. They're going to be doing the last annual report. I think this is a nice way to kind of wrap up the whole M&V with the Honeywell referendum that went through. And
Okay.
we'll have something in June 30th. They have till I can't speak today, so I apologize. They have to June 30th of this summer to send it back to us for review, and that will be the end of the M&V. As you know, a termination letter was sent out. So we're going to be, eclipsing that program. March will be the final payment, and then going forward, it's no longer an expenditure for our account.
Okay, sounds good.
Everybody did
And-
receive that, right, Donna? Because I did send that out after. I did send confirmation that Greg Simmons sent that. Everybody received that.
Okay,
You should have received it all. I think it was the Friday after the meeting, so I just want to make sure everybody has it.
I'm not totally sure I got it, but I'll look and let you know if I didn't.
right.
Okay, yeah, you can just
Thank
chat
you.
me. I know. Thanks.
Okay, so clean energy and the Green Bank, we've turned everything over to Kasha. and we're support personnel there, but.
Yeah, they're actually coming to tour, I believe, the 31st to do the site assessments.
Okay, great.
So that was a little heads up I wanted to give the community. I know they've been very active in solar, so they are coming out the 31st to do the schools that were suggested and determined to seem to be appropriate.
Great.
Do you have
And
any
there's some
comments?
question about the animal shelter property. But I guess you all will figure out what ends up having the most potential for
Right.
that visit.
I believe the Green Bay people, along with Kasha, they came together to figure out which ones make the most sense. So I think it was input from, Green Bank as well.
Okay. Great.
We can always
Okay.
ask for
Okay.
clarification.
Yep, cool. All good. Wonderful. Glad it's moving along.
Good. We'll catch us up. They'll catch us up someday, Melissa. We should look into solar lights for sporting though. Maybe we can do that on our own.
Special project.
Special project, yes. Okay, transfer station, anything new or we're just moving forward to budget?
No, I got a bunch of new stuff. So again, like you heard,
Oh, okay.
that it is going to be funded. 610 is going to be funded for the project. So that is absolutely wonderful, and staff here are thrilled to hear that. The second thing is that we will not have to go to planning and zoning. They're going to, Lori Witten, thank goodness for her, and also Chairman Nelson have worked to have that administratively approved. So we don't have to go
Okay,
through that long process at P&Z. The North Central Health District approved the septic system, so that's done. We have all environmental and all required permitting done except for one, which is the aquifer protection area. There is nothing on file that Lori could find or anyone else can find of that property being applied for, whatever as in the APA.
okay,
So I just need to do that, and I guess it's going to be like 15 minutes or so right before one of the P&Z meetings that they will do the APA. And after that, we are ready to rock. So everything is cranking along, and we're just waiting to finalize a few things with the specifications and going out to bid hopefully in another 6 weeks or so, 8 weeks. And then hopefully the goal is to kind of open it up in June sometime and hopefully get everything on board. So when the funding, if council does adopt the budget with the 610 on July 1st, basically we can start July 5th or whatever that Monday is.
okay.
So I think we made some really substantial process. And again, I really congratulate, and really thank Lori and Chairman Nelson for helping out and just getting that through administrative approval. So,
Okay.
yep.
We gotta get a sign that says the Doug McSutherland Memorial Transfer Station.
There's got to be another quote underneath that, Walter, like the best place in the world to take, I don't know, maybe, who knows? We'll have something fun, Walter.
Okay. Is the master list and trying to present what's happened over the last, well, for me, I guess 6 or 7 years. So where we started, where we are now, and how we keep moving forward. And I guess Jonathan said he's met with some of the, I guess he has some input on how we can get student input and help. So I'm going to turn it over to Jonathan, and I'm going to be right back. Walter, can you?
Yeah, so I asked Michelle Middleton what the students could do as that came up in conversation at one of our previous meetings about what the students could do to be involved in that activity. And due to current restrictions, they wouldn't be able to do anything on site, so no filming or anything like that. But if we were to get them some material, they could use that material in their class for PowerPoints, whatever. The biggest thing is, like I said, they just can't be on site filming. Any of that's out the window for the time being. So but material brought to them, they can use. So that's where that stands. So that's it, Donna.
Okay, so basically, if we gather stuff together, they will put together the presentation, is what I'm hearing, or what.
Yeah, that's correct. And Michelle was actually pretty psyched about it. So
Okay,
it's something that, they seemed eager to take on. So.
all right, so open up for discussion. Bethany?
You
I
always
saw you on
the topic. Where's our best resource? Is this compiled like on the website? I'm kind of at a loss where all of our information is.
I was thinking about that today. Scott, where's all our information?
All our information is in your head and Mr. Neville's head and all your Excel spreadsheets.
I was gonna say the same thing, so I second that motion.
Thank you, Walter.
Well, we have a lot of presentations that we've done, and I'm still upset that we haven't shown the annex pool to the council. We haven't been able to squeeze that presentation in there. I think there's a lot of stuff, Scott, that you've put out there on our Facebook page and all those presentations that I think.
Yes, anything available publicly that we have shared in any of our meetings or where one of us has presented to the town council, I've gotten those things, the day after they were posted on the town website, and I've shared them our way, but I don't have a file of everything saved, but I mean, we can go back and try to pull it from there and from emails. I don't mind doing that.
Right. So I think some of the things that, I think we need to start with, the initial report of, what did we need to do? And somehow I'll pull all that stuff that I have and start to label that. But I think there's, the referendums, the performance contract, there's all these things that we just need to give a little snippet of, what it is and what did it solve.
Well, I think, Donna, you'd be the best captain for that, even if you didn't do it yourself. But
right.
Top level, these things that are in your head that you want to see us tout and show, what this group has done and what you have been involved with for so long. So
Right.
if you kind of just put an outline together, that would give them some guidance too on what you even want this project to, what this presentation will become.
I think people don't realize that one of the most important things I see here is I see Jeff sitting there and I see Donald sitting there. And I cannot tell you how hard we fought the first, I don't know, 3 years, 4 years to say what we truly needed. And, bringing in people like Randy Daigle and Steve Twitchell and people who are, project managers and, town Board of Ed building managers that live in the town of Enfield to help give us guidance, and to have Chris Cycli come on and to explain all the grant stuff to us. And even the stuff like that John came on, John, Wilcox, and explains all, how do we get this spending done? And how do we, really dig our heels in to get it done? And to have, really, we had problems in our schools with leaking roofs. They weren't quite as bad as, they were portrayed, but they were still inappropriate. And I think that's really what we want to get across. So, and everybody must have a pet project or something that we've done in facilities that, Doug McSellen in the transfer station, Melissa and, clean energy, in the performance contract. So there's all these little things that, are going on that, the fact that, how much pressure did we all get when, the high schools were combined to sell the annex? And, yet it's, it's developing into a very robust, viable building. So all that story needs to be told, and it needs to be, because this is a committee that's, changed, and, it's like a chameleon. Picks up whatever needs to be done and does it. So, okay, so you have your contact, Jonathan. I have some work to do. Everybody else has some thinking to do. Scott, you have, you're a good source for this, for the webpage, and anything else, just email me stuff, and, I'll try to pull it, and, we'll pull it together and see what we get.
Let's just, I just appreciate if we came up with some kind of timeline as well for when we'd like this to be finished by. Because we got to remember, end of the school year is coming up pretty soon, and then.
Could we do it by the end of the school year?
Huh?
Could they do it by the end of the school year?
Well, that's the thing. If it was to, be moved to the fall, then we need a timeline for the fall before the
Right.
referendum. So,
Right.
yeah, so just keep a timeline in your head as well while we think about this.
Right, because now it's March. If we could get them, the information by April, and maybe they could put it together by the end of the year. Because most of the stuff we're going to give them is going to be PowerPoint presentations that they can incorporate into their story by looking at it, like the BL one for the master plan.
Yeah, and Donna, what I was going to say is that the town manager's website is a really good repository for all those presentations,
That's, yeah,
all those PDFs, and all the PowerPoints. So, again, if Scott or whoever wants to kind of like even start there, I mean, I'm just kind of throwing it out there for you.
right.
Just remember, because again, I mean, thanks to Chris that he has been posting all those things, which has been good.
He's done a really good job, and I think going away from those quarterlies that nobody came to, and all they did was complain about the same thing, to having the 6 o'clock presentation meetings where we share everything, and we basically show what's going on, has been, I think, one of the better things that have come out of this council.
Agreed.
So I guess the thing is to just look back at old agendas and things like that, and start pulling information from old agendas, and seeing what we can put together to give to them. And I think the goal should be mid-April to get the information to Jonathan. You're going to be our point person on this, Jonathan. So, again, I am getting the thumbs up. So that's what we'll do. We'll get the stuff to you, and you can bring it over to them. And it's always good to see an interpretation, from outside of the people that have worked on it forever, to see what other people actually see. I always say, you don't know if you have good directions unless you write the directions and somebody else does it. And then you see whether they can actually accomplish the task that needs to be done.
So Donna, just one more thing, just another factoid, like you said, like checking the agendas. I just went on the Agenda Center, and they have them all the way back to 2016. So all the agenda and the minutes go back to 2016.
Yep.
So just letting everybody know.
Okay, great.
Through the town website, Agenda Center.
Okay. Yeah, we didn't meet very often when we first, we couldn't get a quorum. We couldn't get anybody. It was not easy. And the town manager met with us. He was the for lack of a better thing, our staff liaison was the town manager. And we were totally overwhelmed for the first, I would say, 6 months. We just couldn't figure out what we were doing. It was a huge task. And I just think, the DPW has grown so much, and, it's just such a pleasure to watch things just get done.
We appreciate that.
So just out of curiosity, that would be we would have one more meeting or 2 more meetings by mid-April, correct? I'm thinking about it correctly.
Okay, so April, I got my calendar here. We're going to meet on the 8th of April and the 22nd of April. When is April vacation?
That would be
The 12th?
Week of the 12th, week of the 12th.
Great, perfect. So if we have all the information to you for the 22nd, we don't even need to approve. Do we need to approve it? I don't. So we'll try to get you the information for the 19th when they get back in.
Yeah, that
How's
works.
that sound?
Good.
Anything Jonathan gets would be approved because it would have been approved minutes or approved presentations, et cetera. So we're okay on that end.
That's, you know what, Scott, that's a perfect point. Absolutely. So. I think the other thing about this committee is, you know, we do things and then we just give it away to the next committee to finish, like JFK. I mean, this committee did a lot of work to get that done, and I went by and boy, White Wing is all torn apart. So, all right. All good on that? And the Joint Facilities Committee communication, Scott, you have anything other to add to the Facebook page?
No, we keep it updated. We talked about this meeting this evening, earlier today, as well as like a week out. There's always reminders and links to any presentations that we do either here in this capacity or when, like I said, one of us goes to town council.
Right, and I keep it on the agenda so that the link is in our agenda so they can go into the site and get any information that they need. And again, like Donald said, they can always go to the town manager's website. It is got a plethora of information there. So on that, any new business? Do we have the final invoice from Barnard? Because I didn't receive it today.
Walter, did you get it by chance from Chris or Sam? Do you have it?
I didn't see it.
I'm sorry, say that again?
Final
we have the-
invoice?
What invoice?
Yeah.
Final invoice for
Phase
Barnard.
3?
I am not sure. I can ask Chris the final invoice for Barnard. I'll ask him. I'm not sure.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. And now we have any committee comments or anything?
I got two quick ones, and I'll make them quick. We're going to be transferring over to the Teams platform in the next coming weeks, so it's going to be a slightly different.
No.
What? Thank you, Gina.
No.
I'm sorry, it's not by choice. I like this platform, but it's we're going to be moving to Teams, so our next meeting is going to be a Teams invite.
Ugh.
Guys, our children and our teachers excel at Teams, and we have to trust it.
I don't like change, Scott.
I know, but if our kids can do it,
We can do it.
How am I
That's
going to
right.
rename myself every JFK meeting to something different on Teams?
I'll help you. I will help you.
Okay.
No, you're not.
And then the last, I love this banter because this is kind of how I felt soul crushed when I found the news out. Donald and I cried a little bit. And then the last one was, did everybody get a chance to see the email I sent later this afternoon with the annex spread out? I do apologize for the delay on that. It's been a little busy here the last few days, but I wanted to make sure the committee had it before today's meeting. If anybody did not receive it, I'd be more than happy to send it to them.
Saw it, didn't open it yet.
Okay.
I did. I was
I
going to ask
peeked at
Donna.
it.
I was going to ask Donna if she wanted to put that as an agenda item on the next meeting because
Yeah.
we can now share what exactly is happening in that building and how not empty it is.
It's very telling, especially from a 14-month snapshot from after what the council moved through in January, how busy that place is. So I think it's fun, even just from the BL study we just did to today. It's quite amazing the life that building has. So it's very interesting. I forgot, I forgot how once I started racking the numbers, like, oh my goodness.
So Jeff, if I look at that presentation correctly, because I quickly looked at it like 5 minutes before the meeting, the second two pages are the more updated version of what is occurring over there.
That would be correct. I actually have it loaded if you want to take a quick gander on it. I don't mean to make anybody stay longer than needs to be. indulge me here for a quick second.
Yeah, while you're doing that, anybody who's been over there for the COVID clinic volunteering, people are really grateful for what we and the town of Enfield have been able to do with Trinity and the state and everything. So it's a very vibrant building.
So as everybody knew, BL went through with myself and, Donald, we did this whole deal through the committee on the master plan. This was the January 2020 snapshot of what was happening at the annex at that time. When we were talking to Honeywell, I believe the last meeting, just kind of with everything that's going on, it's a very dynamic space. It's a very fluid area. We brought in a few different departments as their new home with the consolidation plan. So like D Wing was pretty much empty, except for they had the camp for a couple weeks during the summer. This is D Wing now on the main level. Every room's used. Before, pretty much a couple of rooms were used and the rest of it was just completely empty. So just showing like, what's changed from January of 20 to March of 21, where we are today. You have recreation, you have CNA program through, adult, and they were there before, but Opera House Players has some stage building equipment where they do their performing, and it looks like they may be coming back with the regulations of COVID kind of get relaxed. So hopefully we'll see some plays this year. I'm excited to see some live shows, and they're great. I'm not promoting, but I've seen a few shows that are actually quite fun to watch if you get a chance to go see them. And then, just ETV getting these spaces. These were all very much unoccupied. And then we have our community room, which is labeled DAR. If a community outfit or something has something they want to keep in storage, like Daughters of American Revolution or somebody else, this is a room where we can store some of these things that was, set aside. So, I mean, D-Wing is a very large section of school. It's about a fifth of the main level on this area. And it's went from empty to full in the 14 months. It's just amazing how much has changed. You go down to the lower level where, like, if you looked at where we were before, it was kind of like staging and fluid space storage, leftovers. Now these are all programs that operate out of here. So you have the ERFC with their Wednesday day away stuff, or they've been working with the school system. It's been a great program. It was very good that we had that ability for them to, host their large site for, the kids during the time. Where the PD trains, where Buzz is, where B&G is going now. Some of the storage stuff for files for the town and, swing space for JFK at the moment. There really isn't an area of the school or the annex that isn't really used. And then, you get onto the third floor, space across town's at such a premium. We now kind of have the PD doing training on the third floor where they do their, whatever they do some sort of, demonstrations and talking and stuff. So it's just amazing, this building and the life that it has there. And I don't think people necessarily understand how much is going on. So when you kind of rack the numbers, going just over the changes in the main level, 8,000 more square feet being used that were previously unused before. From recreation on the main. The BL study didn't really cover Opera House Players. They were there before, but like ETV, that's another 1,200 square feet. The lower level, 5,000 more square feet is going to be used by B&G, moving from Prospect Street over there. And then obviously all that swing space, that gracious swing space, that was about 16,000 square feet that wasn't really being used. And we're able to do something in that space. Now it's ready to go. It's rentable, I guess, if you will. And then now even with the PD, because space is at such a premium, they're up on the third floor. So long and the short is January 2020, 63% of the usable square footage was being used. Today, we're almost into April of 21, we're at 84% occupancy. So, I think it's a great, a great thing. It's a great building and I'm happy to see it used. And I think it just helps kind of put some guidance on how, we could approach it for investment and, different avenues, to pursue down. That's the intent with, Honeywell maybe coming and taking a look. So just some ideas. It's a large building. It's in great condition, could use some love, but it, you know, I think it could be a real special asset to the town. If we just looked at what has happened there in a year and what we were able to pull off with that space. So I think it's a little gem, and I just don't think people always understand how busy that place is. I mean, Donald and I see it every day because we're there, you know, but I think maybe the public, you know, I think a lot of people, I still hear it sometimes, you know, isn't that place closed? And it's like the farthest thing from closed.
Yeah.
So that's it. Thank you for humoring that little presentation. If anybody didn't receive it, I'd be more than happy to send it out.
I think that was great. And I think also it makes us understand how important it is perhaps to have Honeywell come in and look at what can we do in that building.
Absolutely. And especially with anything energy savings, I think that's the big thing. Now that you're using that kind of square footage, there's ways to operate smartly. And we all know that, you know, power is one of the biggest consumers of your building. It's going to take about 60% of your budget for the operating there. So
Right.
always good to look at it.
Because what kind of lighting is in there, Jeff?
So it's a mix. As we've been renovating spaces, we've been using the JFK LED tubes that were part of the Honeywell referendum.
Okay.
So it's retubed with LEDs. The pool is all LED, but the lion's share of the space is a blend of T12, T8, and I think the gym, don't quote me on it, I think they're T5 high outputs. But
Okay.
there's a lot of T12 and it's mostly T8. So that's about 30-year-old, you know, lighting technology, well past its due. And there's no real lighting control system, which is another challenge. It's based on motions that were put in, look like in the mid 90s, I'm going to guess, from, you know, the sensor. So, you know, there's a lot to do. There's a lot of fancy lighting that we can get into. I'm not going to, you know, I won't go into it. Donald hears me geek out about these types of things all the time, and I'm pretty sure he's tired of hearing me talk about lights and how we can do lumen counts and programming. You know, he hasn't thrown a shoe at me yet, but, you know, if I say lights one more time, he might.
Okay. So now I will put that on the agenda. We'll have further discussion on that at our next meeting. And, you know, we'll get a plan to doing that. Any more comments? Our next meeting will be the 8th of April. I can't believe April's already around the corner. Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn. Happy Easter, everybody.
Happy
Second.
Easter.
All in favor? You guys stay safe. Take care.
Good night.
Bye,
Good
everyone.
night.